Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us tonight from the University of East London. We are Conscious Isolation and we're here with Clara Chuu, who's going to be presenting this evening. Clara Chuu is a London-based multidisciplinary artist and designer. She creates work that reimagines everyday mundane objects in our domestic world, mixing mass production with the handcrafted. Visionary and colourful pop accessories challenge the concept of body association with anonymes, such as a vegetable peeler. Graduating from the Royal College of Art in 2019, her work has been featured in publications including The Face, Lifestyle Asia, Dazed, and Vogue Italia. Much of it questions the prominence of fast-moving consumer goods, blurring boundaries between high and low forms of culture through humorous transformations. Thanks so much for speaking for us tonight, Clara. I'll let you.
Okay, cool. Oh, thank you. I'm just gonna put my screen up. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't see your screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Brilliant. That's perfect. Thanks so much, Clara.
Perfect. Cool. So, good evening. Thank you so much for your time to join me in this talk tonight. And obviously, thank you, Susie, for getting in touch again for me to do a presentation. I think it's just a really good opportunity for me to kind of, stop for a second to look at, what I've been doing for the past about 5 years and just, really step back to, see how far I've come. So thank you. And yeah, my name's Clara. I'm a multidisciplinary artist and designer based in London with a background in fashion, women's wear and accessories. And I'm just going to talk about my journey of going into, studying fashion to my current practice as an artist. So a bit about my background. I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I've moved to Toronto for school, and I was going to go to New York to do a fine art degree because I painted a lot as a kid, and I just thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. But I somehow ended up in London, and I did a foundation in Camberwell, and at the time I was building a lot of sort of sculptures around the body, and so I thought I would go into fashion, and I got a place at the London College of Fashion for women's wear. That was about 6 years ago. So at the time I actually had no clue what I was doing technically. I sort of went into doing a degree without knowing what pattern cutting was. I didn't know how to sew, and it was kind of ridiculous to tell people that going into doing a degree in fashion design, not knowing what a seam allowance was. But yeah, one thing I was really comfortable with doing though was collaging. At least I thought I was really good at it. And that would just kind of be the first approach to every single project that I had or collections that I was designing. So these sort of cutouts, they would come from, books, magazines, or just vintage magazines, sort of all sorts of publications. And I'll just cut out shapes and, colors that I'm most drawn into. And I would then, have a lot of references from fashion designers and just sort of cut and paste these shapes onto them to create my own silhouettes. So that's how I design, and it became a habit. And yeah, again, here I was looking at, old photographs of fishermen back in the days in Hong Kong, and just sort of really drawn into these simple garments that they were wearing. Just simplicity of the outfit, long sleeve shirts, baggy trousers, and not even any shoes sometimes. So these colourful cut-out shapes that you can see, they're mostly just from chairs and tables from the surroundings of these photographs that I found, and I just literally just cut and paste them onto garments, and I just got really interested in, you know, the sort of contrast between the wool and the linen of the shirts compare with these mass-produced, you know, plastic chairs on the sidewalks of the streets in Hong Kong. So yeah, that was kind of, at that time, I thought that's how I was going to design, because I felt really comfortable doing that. And just another example of, you know, I was really inspired by the 60s fashion and sort of the mod culture with home decor at the time. So I'll just take the influence of these shapes and colors into combining them with, you know, tailoring. And to be fair, a lot of them weren't fashion references. It's kind of funny to think that I barely, you know, had any sort of designer references, because I would consider myself as not really caring too much about trends. For me, it felt more like, you know, sort of finding things that people, you know, kind of seeing beauty in things that people disregard as it looking trendy. So that's what all of these, you know, furniture and shapes sort of references come from. Yeah, it was sort of more like what's going to make an impact on, you know, how the person uses this product or how they feel, rather than clothing itself. So this was actually one of the first outfits that I've made. It was this very long shirt dress with all the piping details, and I've managed to use all these waist strings that I found and collected and make it into piping. And it was just really simple underneath, with a buckle up leather sort of dress with all these laser cutter panels, and just very simple fastenings with rivets. And yeah, I think at that point I've gained a lot of sort of understanding of my own aesthetics as a designer, and just how I, you know, approached executing a garment. And that was really the deconstruction element of it, and, you know, the sort of use of unconventional materials. So I think that was the turning point. And at the time as well, I was working for some designers, and I was working for Martina Spatlova at the time, and she was using a lot of hand weaving leather techniques in her leather jackets and trousers at the time. And I've learned a lot from her, just sort of, you know, treating all these unconventional materials by painting it, dyeing it, and just really using the craftsmanships and not just the fabrics we see every day. So yeah. And this is actually my grandma on the top. I was collecting all these photographs from my family, and I just love, you know, looking at what people wear every day, and I wanted to create something that people would wear, but at the same time be able to, you know, dress up and down. So here you can just see examples of a cut and paste Pantone chair, obviously the world's first ever molded plastic chair, and I was just always coming up with ways to kind of try and incorporate things and furniture like that in clothing. Always really drawn into these mass-produced goods and materials, you know, the way it was produced in the factory. Done a lot of research around that as well, and I just love how exaggerated and sort of ridiculous it looks around the body. So yeah, for me, you know, humor is a huge part of my work, and that's always something I try to achieve, is to, you know, just have a bit of fun in what I design, And it's funny how, you know, fashion nowadays, we almost want to retain that minimal and effortless image, and the connotation of sort of dressing up and down, it has a whole different meaning, especially now. So I'm still doing that in my work right now, in some of the handbags, the way that, you know, things can be detachable when you want them to be, and sort of simplify them. So yeah, in order to achieve, you know, shapes like that, so this is another example of, you know, kind of wanting to create volume and shapes around the body. And here you can see that she's wearing, you know, the undergarment is a very simple stripy t-shirt with just a simple skirt, and very important, just a leather bag. And I was really drawn into that, sort of the idea of straps used in clothing as well. And just again, all these furniture references that I've sort of cut and paste onto the body. Another example, this is my granddad, and I didn't really, you know, I was doing women's wear, but I didn't really try to create clothes just for women. For me, it's not really about the gender or the gender of the audience. It's about, you know, the shapes that could be worn on and off of the body. And yeah, just some of the process, I would, you know, start bending and cutting wood and foam to achieve that, sort of heating up all sorts of, you know, materials to mold around furniture. And I was doing a lot of testing and sampling as to how they could just combine and attach to be attached to fabrics. And a friend of mine at the time was doing product design at St. Martin's, and I would, you know, just sneak into the workshops and just use the, you know, bandsaw, the cutter, and all that sort of thing. And I would almost spend, you know, more time in their workshops doing that, rather than being with everybody by the sewing machine. So that was, yeah, I felt more like in my element at the time. And so yeah, so this was one of the outfits I've created for that collection, and it was this sort of bended wood that could fit into the shapes around the body. And I've managed to use screws, and it was just some nuts and washers at the time, doing a lot of testings as to how to weave into the jersey that I was working with. It was a very difficult kind of material because it's just not stable at all. We all know that jersey has stretch to it. So it's almost the opposite of what I wanted to build around the garment itself. So that was quite tricky, but I really enjoyed working on that because I was working with a technician as well at the time, and he was the one who taught me about, you know, building cardboard, literally card and plastic sheets inside garments. And he had a background in actually handbags, and he was working as a technician as well for a handbag brand, and he taught me a lot in terms of, you know, working with shapes and dealing with fabrics. And I think that sort of got me into wanting to do a handbag course in accessories afterwards as well. I didn't expect it to be as simple as that. Literally just trap cardboard, boxes or paper, you know, in between fabrics and stitching them up together. So that was quite interesting for me. And so yeah, these words that you see on a garment, they can be taken out as well and put back in. And just sort of the idea again of dressing up and down, and again, a really simple silhouette underneath, with a t-shirt and an elasticated skirt where the shaping would just drop if you'd taken all the supporting materials out. So that was that was kind of the key element of the collection. And this was another outfit where I've used warbler to mold around. Warbler is a kind of thermoplastic. It's really common in sort of cosplay and just costume design. So I was using a lot of that material at the time, and just sort of being intrigued by how it could literally go into the sewing machine as well with and stitch it up with fabric. So I was doing a lot of, you know, test and sampling on how to finish the hem, you know, neatly and just professionally with all these sort of unconventional materials that I'm using. So yeah, I think at this point, I was really sure that I wanted to explore more of the element of detachable forms, you know, and I was looking at soft tailoring pieces as well. And I find myself always being drawn into the accessories around all these soft tailoring garments in my research. And so I thought I would, you know, combine bags in my final collection, again, having very simple tailored pieces made to good quality as the main garments. Really well constructed, beautiful fabrics with crazy shapes over it, and yeah, really bringing out the architectural elements to it. And at the time, I was really inspired by the architecture in Kowloon Walled City in Hong Kong, which actually got demolished in 1985. And I was just really drawn into the chaotic elements of it. Just the water pipes, you know, air conditioning, just hanging off the walls and the exterior of the buildings. And I thought they would be interesting to be made into bag shapes. It really is kind of like upholstery, kind of, you know, building a sofa cover for all these foam that I've cut up, and finding ways to, you know, create a good lining to it, and put a zip in it that, you know, where you can take the foam out and use it as a bag. So this was one of the outfits from my final collection, where I've got a big tailored coat with many different straps that you can button up to different positions, and the things that the shapes that she's carrying, you can take the blue foam out as well in the picture in the corner, and you can use them as bags. And so yeah, the picture on the right, you can kind of see how I just wanted the fabric to naturally drape, you know, around the shoulders or around the body when the shape's being taken out. Just two other outfits to show the examples of how simple the undergarments were. And I really wanted to focus on that. Yeah, another tailored jacket in the collection. And yeah, so wearability was very important to me, and I just wanted, you know, the shapes to be a fun element that adds on to it. So that was pretty much what I've done about 4 to 5 years ago, and because of that collection, I kind of, you know, just rethink about what I was drawn into most, and that's when I wanted to specialize in accessories, and so I went into RCA to do a course in handbags. I knew I had an interest in, you know, exploring mass-produced everyday goods and sort of their production methods, and I thought I'd do a study on, you know, Tupperware containers. It's such a versatile product, and I was just really eager to sort of, you know, transform this repeatedly casted product into, and it's just such a mundane everyday object. I wanted to transform that into a form of fashion accessory. And I was also doing a lot of reading at the time on sort of just exploring this object. as my main focus in my study, and just sort of looking at how Tupperware has caused like a positive change in sort of the social role of femininity from the 20th to the 21st century, and really emphasizing on the change in the use of domestic goods by women. And so I was really interested in that. I've also done a piece of writing on it as well. And I was, when I started designing, wanting to create a product surrounding this object, I've done a lot of sort of resin casting and just vacuum forming, and I wanted to, you know, reproduce the shape, and also use the software geometric freeform to just kind of sculpt with a haptic arm device to see, you know, what kind of innovative shapes I could generate with. Also, of course, molding with leather as well to see how I can incorporate, again, you know, a traditional sort of material used in handbags into my designs. So in the beginning of the talk, I spoke about, you know, doing a lot of collages and, you know, it being a comfort zone of mine. And I've, you know, continued to do that by sort of combining the shapes of food with different kinds of food packagings and lunchboxes, and that's and you can see that even after I've gone into doing accessories rather than clothing. So you have a 2D image on the left, and the one on the right was a prototype that I've made in with 3D printing in I think that was FDM. I wanted to mimic the textures of an orange, and so I was, you know, trying to practice on rhino as well to really get that right. And for the lid in the bag, I've taken a manual juicer apart, and I wanted to use that as a lid, and it actually just fits perfectly. So I think just collecting so many of these objects throughout the years as well, I literally have boxes and boxes full of discarded sort of homeware, and I just love putting things together and just finding interesting shapes that fit together, even though they're from a completely different appliance or product. So yeah, so that was sort of one of the first handbag that I've made. Again, I've gone into a course without knowing how to actually make a handbag, but I think it was more of, you know, experimenting with a lot of different materials and sort of gadgets and hinges that I always, you know, I'm always fascinated with, rather than a traditional approach in accessories design. So here you can see the components of the juicer, and I've managed to bend the acrylic, so then with the opening of the bag, you follow the shape of the handle. And I wanted to create something quite compact, sort of taking the idea of a Tupperware. You know, it's a smartly engineered product, and, you know, with different sizes that all stack together, and the airtight lids that perfectly seals the lunchbox. And I wanted to, you know, sort of retain some of that element to it, and really have the engineering sort of character to it. So yeah, in a lot of the research that I've done around food packaging, and I was really drawn into, you know, just food in general being used in an unexpected element. I think the narrative around what I do, especially now, is very important. And I just wanted to create something that has humor to it, you know, playing around with the social context of everyday objects. And that's the technical side of looking at, you know, how hinges and fastenings work, but also, you know, looking at old references of how people consume food, or, you know, how graphics have changed across the years on food packagings, and just the way of opening and closing them. I always found that really intriguing, and I wanted to incorporate that sort of fun and quirky element into what I designed. So I also thought I could, mimic the textures of the edibles, and that's why I've gone into, 3D printing a lot as well with resin to sort of really get that transparent, jelly type of texture in my work that sort of kind of makes you question whether or not if they're real or fake. I think that's also one of the things why, I love working with the materials I work with as well. They just have this element, this really satisfying element of holding them, or, the plastic texture around it. So again, started doing a lot of collages just with pre-existing supermarket shopping carts or food packagings and Tupperware boxes. And what I started doing was just keeping a record and sort of a diary of all of the things that I collect. So here you can see it's got water bottles in there. Not sure if it's clear to everybody, but yeah, I've got a funnel in there, sort of silicone heat-proof mat from the kitchen, and just old food packagings as well. And I've cut them up and just put them back together into different kinds of handbags. You have a shopper there, you have a satchel there. So I wanted it to be a variety of different end products as well. And yeah, so these ones, I've collected them from a market in Hong Kong. I just really like to, write down as well where I collect all of my materials from. Some of them are from charities, some of them are from, friends and families. My friends just love bringing me, some old, sponges or just things that people don't want in their house. Kind of became a hoarder because of that. But yeah, just examples of collages as well with disposable food packaging. I also wanted to, incorporate that in my designs just to try out and see what I can make out of one-use food packaging as well. So yeah, I've also done quite a lot of experimentation with just my material choices. I've got a silicone molded bag here with so again, really trying to create that jelly sort of quality to it. And I also wanted one of the biggest approach and sort of essential approach to my work is that I try to minimize the amount of stitching or the amount of fastening used in my work, and that's also a sustainable element to what I do. And here I've tried to create something just out of a sheet of material without any without extra fastenings, so it can be folded and riveted through the holes in here. So at that point, I was kind of questioning whether I wanted, because the entire collection was inspired by a highly functional object, Tupperware, and I was kind of debating whether or not if I want to invest my 2 years of my time doing my MA, sort of investigating the science behind, the materials. Do I want to develop a bacteria-free and resistant sort of material to incorporate into the bags I design? So I've also tried out different things. Here's just an example of using cooling ice packs and making it detachable within the bag that I was making. So here you can literally take it off and put it in a freezer and put it back on to use. That could sort of keep your food inside the bag. And I've used a thermal lining as well in there that I've taken apart from old sort of lunch bags that I found. And yeah, and at that time I just really got into using kitchenware as my pure material. I thought, you know, I wanted to approach it in a way where I could minimize my cost instead of, I was doing a lot of research around injection molding as well. And I thought, rather than, you know, opening my own mold, that costs a fortune unless you're producing a lot of products with it. I thought, why not just, you know, collect all these discarded kitchen utensils that's already got all these engineered sort of element to it ready. And so this was made from a silicone mat with 2 towel rails, and it was just riveted. This was made, you know, in just under 2 hours as well. And so I thought I really wanted to embrace just the quality that they have, that these materials have. And then so I started, you know, just using things that I found. And this is another example of the ice cube bag that I've made. So on the right, you've got ice cube trays, and you've got a jar opener. And so it's just about, you know, embracing what the material offers us, sort of like the intrinsic beauty behind it. And I love how they just, you know, slot together so easily, because that's what they were designed to be for, you know, to save space as well in your house. So yeah, again, another example of a belt that I've made. I think this is a very clear example into showing how I've used, so the teeth around the jar opener. It was just very easy for me to, you know, thread it through and combine it with other materials. And yeah, so moving on to, this was a collection that I made last year, and combining with 3D printing and resin casting, I've used again some silicone heatproof mat as materials in the bags. And I really enjoyed the process of, you know, just even putting different colors together and sort of matching them, and finding ways to minimize, let's say, the use in leather or the use in traditional fabrics. So this was the orange bag that was supposed to be an improved handbag that I've shown you guys as well from previous slides. And the lining of the bag, I've used discarded, here you can see, it's a carpet lining. So I thought it's quite interesting to create this, you know, sort of hairy textural quality to it as well. And that was also 3D printed, that, you know, tries to mimic the texture of an orange. And that was combined with leather and laser cutted acrylic. And this was a 3D printed sort of measuring jug bag that I've modeled with a friend as well. I collaborated with my friend who who's amazing at 3D rendering, and we sort of work together to really try and achieve the industrial sort of level and quality of the existing products on the market. So that's another example. And the ice cube bag. And I've created a sort of lipstick compartment, really just adding a flap to it for the interior of the bag, because actually the ice cube compartments, it fits a lipstick perfectly. So it's just really thinking about how to utilize, you know, the existing shape of what I have ready, rather than, let's say, you know, creating another pocket from scratch, or adding another, you know, adding 5 other panels to create other compartments in my accessories. So that was quite an interesting thing for me in terms of my process. So this was entirely 3D printed, actually, but the way that we've engineered it, it kind of slides open as a coin purse, and also just fits in perfectly between the gaps. And this was taken from an iconic shape of Tupperware, and I thought I wanted a conceptual piece in the collection that also shows how smartly engineered that product is. And so this was that, where you can slide open and open it as a coin purse and put it back in. So this is actually one of my favorite pieces that I've done. It's a very functional tote bag, leather tote bag, but with a water bottle turn lock. So instead of using, you know, traditional handbag fittings, I thought I would take apart a water bottle and just use little things like that to create, you know, my own fittings. And I've managed to fill it with resin on the back to create some support, and just using some screws, actually drilling 3 holes. And here in my sketches you can see the way it turns, just kind of putting another piece of acrylic in the back and using the screws to stop the lock to turn all the way. It probably sounds very complicated, but it actually really isn't. Some examples of my sketches. This is kind of the way I think as well, in terms of just how to engineer and put together things that kind of seems like they are incompatible, but when they're next to each other, I can sort of just envision it. So that was the final outcome. That was at the show, and yeah, so that was how I, you know, sort of create my creative process in designing my handbags. And actually, after the RCA, I went on to work for a designer, and I was doing a traineeship as an assistant in handbag design. And I've learned a lot, you know, from the industry, and sort of just dealing with factories and the process of, you know, running a brand, dealing with buying and suppliers. And of course, because of COVID as well, I just had to, you know, end the contract, and I'm not doing that anymore. But actually, that gave me the opportunity to kind of just, you know, reflect on what I wanted to do. And I was, I joined a contest, the International Talent Contest, and I was doing a special project for them after I've left my job, and I was literally just making at home because I've moved out of my studio for the job at the time, and I didn't have a space to make. But because of the contest, I started working on things again, and this was an installation that I've done for them. It's a project with Swatch, and I was creating, these 15 items that are completely non-wearable, but they are still accessories, and it's kind of, a surreal take on a nomad's journey in traveling, and these are all her travel essentials in this project. And I've got a watch in there, sunglasses, a purse, headphones, suitcase, slippers, a hat, a toothbrush. So just thinking about all these travel essentials, and I put together them in kind of quite quickly, to be honest. I've worked on this for about a month, and again, these are things that I've collected throughout the years, and I just sort of took them out again and just try to put them together. This is one of them using some clothes hooks and an egg ring and just some zip ties. This was, a fruit crate that I found out of a butcher's, and I've sort of made friends already with these food shops around where I live, and whenever I walk past, they just sort of already know that I wanted, fruit crates or any kind of, food containers, which is quite sweet. And so this is a suitcase that I've done with one of the fruit crates and some rubber tubes, and the handles are from a fly swatter actually, and just some wheels that was from a broken rail that I had years ago. And this is an umbrella that I've made from a shopping tote bag from One Below, and just a mop. Phones, some slippers from cleaning products, and just a coffee mug and a duster. Some earrings and some glasses, and this was a phone. I've taken apart the coat hooks and just sort of put them together. I'm actually quite so I actually quite enjoy just how spontaneous this process was in terms of my making, because I was at home at the time on lockdown as well. This was made in March, April, around that time, and I didn't, go and find more materials or anything. And so I was really surprised as to how I could achieve this result as well, using just a very low tech approach in making, and literally with a Dremel, a glue gun, some super glue, maybe a scalpel sometimes, and a hole puncher. So these would be like my main tools that I use sort of every day. Nothing crazy really, compared to, before I would be bending a lot of, different kinds of materials, heating them up, or using a bandsaw, larger equipments like that. But I think also, with the pandemic as well, it's kind of made me rethink my approach and how efficient it can be, even if I make from home. And I think it's just quite interesting as well that so I shot this at my boyfriend's, and it was just a very simple backdrop, and it's made us all kind of realize how efficient it can be, even having a smaller team rather than having a big production team to organize shoots, you know, makeup artists, models. So I think it's quite interesting to sort of rethink how you market your products as well, or your art. And I really enjoy that. So this was another handbag that I've done with some chopping boards and a file and I think that was a banana bag. And a bucket with some gloves, some gardening gloves, so that's was supposed to be a hat. So yeah, I wanted each one to kind of be, you know, an experiment, and I wanted to create this really familiar but strange environment for the viewer, and just sort of create this humorous deconstruction of everyday mundanity, and making these really recognizable and common objects uncommon. So after that, I've actually then moved on to doing another art installation that was supposed to be showing in Holland just a week ago, actually. This is called Cloudy at Home. It's another art installation that I've done, and during lockdown as well. So this was kind of a reimagination of our homes in the pandemic, and I just really sort of wanted to bring a contrast between the work's, you know, artificiality and its low-tech production to the viewer, that sort of portray, you know, a critical reflection on our society's consumerism as well. And again, you know, carrying on what I thought was essential in my practice, to reuse what we thought was, you know, even normal, too normal to be a form of fashion accessory. So I've got some hair rollers here that I've made into chains, and sort of a charger that becomes an opening. And again, utilizing the elements that it's already got, a USB that plugs into the charger as a very secure type of fastening, rather than, you know, maybe potentially opening up a mold and engineering a sort of fastening into, let's say, a buckle that I've designed. So this was a shower mat clutch that I've done, and with just very simple one sheet of material that folds into a clutch, and two dustpan and brush. This was a omelette holder actually, and two dusters. And I've managed to save, you know, some of the masks I've used as well, and disinfect them and made them into tiny little bags. Of course, they're not functional in terms of wearability, but I thought it's just a funny piece to add to the installation as well. And some headphones from the juicer and another duster, and some slippers here with sponges. And I've got a bikini here with another one of the jelly molds. And I thought this one was quite funny because of the way, you know, a toilet seat opens, and just the fluffy cover. I thought that was quite, there's a kitsch element to it, and it sort of brings me back to, you know, all of my old research in terms of the 70s and the 60s sort of home decor, and that really gives me a vintage sort of vibe to it. And so I wanted to add something different to the installation, and I've picked that as a piece. And of course, you know, wanting to turn the piece into something, you know, humorous and being relevant to kind of today's life at home as well. So I've gotten these signs and stickers that I thought would be quite, you know, hilarious to incorporate that in my work. And sort of a 2-meter, you know, spray repellent bag that I've made with a 2-meter sign on it, stickers, and an actually functional sort of spray where you can fill up the bottle on the left-hand side and use it as an actual spray. So I've extended the tube from inside the bottle to the other side of the bag. So yeah, at this point, I'm still making handbags, and the bags are made to order on request now at the moment, and it's something that I'm definitely going to continue working on. But I think after doing, you know, several installation myself as well, kind of having a complete different approach to my making, I sort of come to a realization that, you know, I wanted to work a lot more on the narratives, and so I'm moving into more of an art direction and sort of set design for still lives direction in my career path at the moment. And I'm really enjoying that, because I think having a fashion background and 2 degrees in fashion as well, you constantly, you know, asking yourself, being asked the question, you know, who's the audience, where's the market going to be, and who are you selling this to, and who's going to be wearing it. And it was a lot about, you know, the wearability and sort of the commercial value of the products that you design. But I think for me, at least at the moment, it's not so much about that, but rather the narrative behind the materials that I use, and sort of bringing out the message of kind of seeing beauty in things that we ignore, you know, every day, or kind of just rethinking what these objects are, and, you know, rethinking their value. If you could make them into one-off pieces, even from all these materials that cost nothing, that cost, you know, 99p. That's why I've named my first installation Poundland, actually, because everything from there was, you know, £1 or even less than £1. So it's kind of rethinking about the way we perceive fashion sometimes as well, as a fantasy, or, you know, sort of the luxury element to it, and really thinking about what we can find around us. And, you know, especially this time, you know, with limited resources, it's kind of a good time to think about things like that. So this was one of the still lives that I've done, collaborating with a photographer, and I was looking at gendered objects around the house, and I wanted to use them to sort of mimic body fragments. So here you've got breasts and nipples, but out of doorknobs and buttons, and using existing body casts as well, existing objects, and also, you know, working on new body casts around my own body. And here I tried to create, you know, some feet with toenails as buttons, and hairbrushes as, you know, toes and the feet itself. And so moving forward as an artist as well, I think at the moment I really want to try and, you know, bring the story of reusing and upcycling and repurposing all these mundane objects, and sort of I think doing this talk is a very good opportunity for me in preparing, you know, some future workshops and sort of tutorials that I'm working on at the moment, that sort of try to work with the audience of how they could, you know, build their own accessories using things that they find at home as well, which is something that I'm currently planning on doing, to relate people from, you know, just normal people who has no, you know, knowledge in fashion or any sort of creative background, where they can create all these one-off pieces as well, literally using, let's say, glue gun or super glue at home, and also just working towards some collaborations with department stores as well. A lot of stores had to close down because of COVID, and that's sort of a good opportunity as well for me to reach out to collaborators like that, and sort of try and see if I could reuse their materials that are just sitting in their warehouse. And so this is just one of the set that I'm working on at the moment. I think you can see it in the background as well in my studio. That's going to be, you know, in a afternoon tea set. So that's going to be an interesting sort of project to work on as well, in terms of creating a set rather than an actual product. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it from me. And yeah, if you have any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Clara. We've got a few questions. The first question is, what inspires you and what make is your 3D printer?
What inspires me? So I actually don't have a 3D printer. I thought of investing in one, but I think that will come, and it's something that I definitely want to invest in the future. Just sort of, you know, finding the right sort of material, whether if it's developing my own plastic or, you know, other resin type of materials that are a lot more, you know, environmentally friendly, and maybe eventually printing my own materials. That's something that I definitely want to work on. And in terms of what inspires me, just everything I see every day, you know, in interiors and just lifestyle goods in general. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And another one in the chat, which is, can you talk about your experience of doing the show at the Royal College?
Yeah, so that was last year, and we tried to do something different last year by just, you know, focusing on one outfit from every student. And for me, it was a really interesting experience and just really exciting to have it seen worn on, you know, a model as well, and just seeing the reaction of people, because I actually have managed to put some food in one of my bags, and my model was handing out the food during the show. So that was quite an exciting sort of experience for me, and I hope it was interesting for, you know, everybody else who was there and who saw it. But yeah, that was it was quite tricky in terms of having, you know, also the limited space and the concept behind it, to sort of edit down your work, because everyone was only allowed to show, you know, one piece, even though I didn't. It's quite cheeky in that sense, but it was about, you know, showing your best work. And I think fashion, you know, as well, it's always about showing, you know, 12 looks down the runway. And I think it's good to think of alternative ways in terms of, you know, showing your collection or your products, even if it's just one of them, and even kind of thinking of ways through different kinds of media to show it. I think I was reading a really interesting article on how people kind of rethinking about the way fashion shows should run, and maybe it could be, you know, projected in a theatre, you know, in the future, or sort of, and now we have, you know, shows that are streamed online as well. So I thought that's quite interesting, just the way we've moved forward as an industry as well. So yeah.
And we've got a question about reaction to your work. How does your audience normally react?
I think they just find it funny, because I think some people get really confused as well, which is the reaction that I wanted. Also, just being there, or them later on kind of figuring out that it's something that they would never think of it being. So yeah, they're normally just find it funny or a bit ridiculous as to how these things could be, for example, you know, an accessory that people would want to take out, you know, on a night out, or out on the street, when it's normally, you know, just sitting in their kitchen or in the living room. So yeah.
Brilliant. And also a question about what's the best advice you've ever received, or alternatively, do you have any advice you could give to any students?
Yeah, just I think this could sound a bit general, but I would say the best advice actually was, you know, from a mentor this morning. She said to take it slow, because I think it can get very overwhelming as well, especially after you graduate. You are kind of, you know, it's the fear of not knowing how to support yourself and where to get your sort of financial capacity from. And I think it's just about, you know, taking all the opportunities that you can get, even if it's to, you know, enter competitions or to do a group show yourself, and to really connect with people. I've made, you know, a lot of friends just from social media, and I've made a lot of friendships just from, you know, talking to people on Instagram, for example. You have this sort of friendship that, you know, where you show appreciation to other people's work as well. And when you can connect with, you know, other creatives, I think you can really benefit from sort of building up a network of having people support you, and at the same time supporting other talents that, you know, that could in the future help you with your own work. So that's definitely one of the advice that I'd give. But just to, yeah, I would say to take it slow, because after you graduate as well, I was doing that thing where I was very, you know, stressed about how to support myself with what I do, and applying to a million jobs, and not knowing what I wanted to do. But having that experience in the industry kind of made me rethink that I wanted to start my own thing, and it kind of made you realize what your strengths are, working with people as well, what your weaknesses are, and you can later on then work on it. And So I would say don't get overwhelmed with just everything, and take it slow at a time in building your own, sort of brand or business, if that's what, you want to do.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've got one last question. Is how do you find the difference between using found object hand processes and the CNC ones in terms of the design process? And how do you decide how to combine the two? Or three?
So I just start, making prototypes and just using, let's say, cardboard, and just really looking at the shapes of the design that I have. And if I see something that, let's say if it's a sphere, you can easily find something that could mimic that, and that kind of saved me time and materials as well, to kind of come up with, a 3D rendered file, and to work on it from scratch, to then build it and then having to print it. So I kind of start with the found objects in the beginning, and if I can use those materials, if I can make good use of them, then why not? And like I was saying before as well, in my studio, I just have boxes and boxes of materials lying there. I needed to color code them as well, just because I have too much. And so I would have a pink box, a blue box, and color is really important in my work as well. So I would decide by color as well. So kind of going through my materials and finding what I could use. And if not, then I kind of go towards the technology and the 3D printing process to kind of print, elements, and I would say the joint in between the two, which would be, let's say, leather and the found objects, and to use, to really make good use of the technology as well, where we can, you can literally model anything that could fit around something if you measure it correctly, because you can enter numbers and all that. So with the 3D printing, it's kind of like a joint in between the two, I would say, because you can engineer holes, which saves you time to then drill into them and to stitch them up. So yeah, I would say that's the process that goes into my work normally.
That's really great to hear about your process and your practice. Thank you so much for giving this talk for us. It's invaluable. It's a really good documentation of your visual language and culture. You've really made a very, very sort of accessible and tangible way of being able to demonstrate what it is that you do, which I think is great. And I think that is so key, and that a lot of students, But I before saying goodbye to you, I do have one question myself, and that is, have you thought about using composite materials with regards to your future practice?
Sorry, do you mind repeating that? Kind of broke off a little bit.
Sam, we made it.
I am. You can see. I was just wondering if if you're thinking about using advanced composite materials in your future practice. Is that something that you can?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've thought about in terms of also, building my own materials. But I think at the moment, I think using what I find is sort of the key, message. So yeah, also kind of I think that would come in terms of building my network of collaborators as well. So yeah, if that answers your question.
And it's just very interesting to hear you speak about engineering so much, you see. And so I think there's a very clear connection to that future process. No, it's very interesting. Thank you ever so much for your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone for coming tonight, and we've got more talks over the next week, so we'll be posting about those, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Thanks, Clara.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.